Welcome to the review of Leisure Suit Larry in the Land of the Lounge Lizards. It was created by Sierra and released in 1987. The creator of this entire series was Al Lowe. I'm going to be reviewing the PC version, which again was released in 1987. It utilized Sierra's AGI engine, or also known as the Adventure Game Interpreter. There was a later re-release, but we're not going to discuss that one. So the storyline is you play as a character who's a middle-aged male virgin named Larry Laffer, and he's desperately trying to get lucky. And he's in a fictional American city called Lost Wages. As you'll note, there's also a cameo coding appearance by Ken Williams, one of the founders of Sierra Online. So this game is intended for adults, not kids. So the copy protection at the beginning of the game asks questions that are assumed to be known by adults of the time. I found it quite interesting, the questions that were asked, because some of them were cultural, while others were, of course, timeless. And if you answer them incorrectly, you get dumped to the command prompt and you try again. If you make it past the first few real questions, you're finally presented with a pretty silly question. And there were quite a few questions. So it would be hard to break through this copy protection. Now, one annoyance was it happened every time you started the game. But enough of that. You begin the game right outside of a bar called Lefties. And as you'll note, it's a typical Sierra adventure game where the graphics are in the middle, your score is at the top, and text commands can be typed in, which will appear at the bottom. And it uses the standard AGI text parser, executing commands such as open door, and then you use the arrow keys to move up or down. There was no mouse at this point in the AGI engine. You can climb upstairs just like in King's Quest. In fact, sometimes this reminded me quite a bit of King's Quest. It did have very beautiful graphics, EGA that was utilized to the max. So like all the other Sierra adventure games of the time, the graphics were context sensitive based on where you were standing and what you typed in. For example, here we're going to look at this girl and we're standing right next to her. Sometimes it'll tell you you're too far away if you try to talk with someone and you're not close enough. So there is a little bit of intelligence with the text parser. And of course, Larry is completely lame. He's a stereotypical jerk of the time that is just very sleazy, and all he cares about is trying to get laid. The game does a fantastic job of staying true to the times and having funny reactions. For example, there we pinched the girl and she slapped us. Here we're trying to talk with this man and he says nothing, but he says it continuously. There's a lot of jabs in the game at various lifestyles. And there's some interaction with the game world. Here we do a sit command and it actually shows us sitting at the stool. The text parser does a pretty good job, but occasionally it'll be a little bit lacking. Here I'm trying to type the number 4 to go to the 4th floor, and if you type the actual number it doesn't work. You have to write out FOUR. So here we buy some whiskey, and you see some background sounds of the people just chatting, blah blah blah, which is pretty cool that it does that as you're just sitting there. The game doesn't have too many real-time elements, but there are a couple. So here we pay $3 for the whiskey and continue on. So here we find a jukebox that we can play, and funnily enough, it plays this sleazy song. The music is really nice in the game. It very much fits the mood of the story. Screens change when you go through various doors or the outer edge of the screen. And the dialogue is pretty funny in this game. Here we run across a drunk who Starts pretty much every phrase or word with a SH sound. So we give him the whiskey we just bought. I'm gonna give you my only possession. My only possession. My only possession. All I got in the world. So he gives us a TV remote control, which is really funny. Because it's like, what in the world would you be doing with a TV remote control? And why would I want that? You can look at the inventory items and it shows you a little graphic of the item, which is a great touch. Oh no, not another drunk. And again, he's slurring his S sounds. So we give him some change, or try to give him change, but we don't have any. So we decide to give him some wine that we purchased. I ain't got no TV remote control. That was funny. That actually made me laugh out loud because I discovered that quite a bit later in the game. Here we're sitting on a toilet doing our business, which just sets the mood for the game and tells you how low this is going to sink. Pun intended. Nice sound effect, Al. So when we're done, we stand, get up from the toilet, and of course you would flush the toilet, right? Well, uh-oh, we find our first Sierra death. As you know, Sierra is infamous for its death scenes, and Leisure Suit Larry is no exception. It even shows a little swimming animation. Really nice touch. This game has a lot of nice little touches that make it feel very charming for the time. Luckily, you do have the ability to restore the game. In fact, here's how you save the game. You can look at the instructions by pressing F1 and then move over to navigate the menu and hit save. You have quite a few slots to choose from, and you actually get to name your saved games. So that's awesome. Of course, that's all standard and built into the AGI engine of anyone who develops using Sierra's engine. But while we're at it, let's show a few other death scenes. After all, that's a lot of the fun of Sierra games. This is an unusual death scene. So a cop says, "Stop, pervert," and Larry wonders who he's yelling at. "Caught you, you pervert." Oh, whoops. So Larry forgot to zip his fly and he had a condom on. Yeah, that'll do it. Now this blew my mind when I saw what happens here. So we get beat up in this alley and of course die. And this completely shocked me. So here is the Sierra team showing how a new character is created. Look at that. We even have King's Quest and Space Quest characters down here helping out or being created. Looks like they're being tested. And you see all the Larry Laffer body parts there that get reassembled. What a clever and cool thing to do. So now it shows you what happens every time you reset. What an imagination. Every time you perform an action that is beneficial toward getting you to the end of the game, your score increases. Here it goes from 31 to 33 by picking up this box. Or here we buy an apple, and you wonder, what in the world am I going to use an apple for? But the Sierra games always have some clever way of using an item. Also throughout the game, it's a little bit funny where you have to spray a breath spray because your breath is so bad. And you're always given this random description of how your breath smells so poorly. I'm not sure what would happen if you didn't use it, but I always did. As I mentioned earlier, you can get a list of your inventory items and examine them in detail. There's our breath spray. You also start with a wallet with $100 in it. That won't be enough money to complete the game, and I'll discuss later how you can get more money. Condoms and pills. Ah yes, we're in Leisure Suit Larry world. There are clues throughout the game. Sometimes you have to sift through some funny quotes or some nonsense before you can get it. And the jokes in this game vary from eye-rolling to pretty hilarious. That's one of the eye-rolling ones. But finally we get a password by reading the wall here. Ken sent me. Gee, I wonder who Ken is. I'm sure you figured it out already, but I'm going to be giving a lot of spoilers. So here we knock and try to get in this room. Hey, what's the password? So we give him the password and he lets us in. Here an obnoxious commercial interrupts some song and it gives us a clue yet again. So you do have to pay attention to the clues. So here we're going to dial a phone that we found with that phone number we saw just a few seconds ago. Gee, I wish I found a use for this remote control I found. Oh, here we go, a TV. Wow, look at that. So after turning on the TV, we have to sit through quite a few silly phrases that pop up in the dialogue based on Al Lowe's opinion of TV. So we're basically trying to get this pimp to get away from the stairs so that we can get by. So we keep turning the channel until we find something that interests him. I think we had to flip through about 6 or 7 channels. Even a dig at Mr. Rogers? Come on, Al. All right, he's moving. Hey, dork, you've got toilet paper stuck to your foot. Whoops. Sometimes you'll have to find special items in order to progress in the game. Here we find a card in an ashtray, and it's a pass to get into the disco. It's nice that it's a combination of knowledge and items in order to progress. Some of the items are pretty intuitive to use, such as that pass, whereas others not so much, like using a hammer to break a window as you hang from a rope from the fire escape in order to get some pills. The game also has places where the screen changes and zooms in. Here, for example, we call a cab, and as we enter, we see the inside of the cab. Reminds me of Space Quest, when you get in the spaceship to get out of the original spaceship. So here we can talk to the cabbie, and he gives us helpful tips on various places we can go. So all we have to do is tell him where to take us. And you see a nice little animation of buildings flying by and the center of the road moving as well. Even the steering wheel moves a little bit. As you arrive to your destination, the animation slows down, and then you're asked to pay. And I do recommend paying. The amounts that are presented to you are actually quite random, which is pretty funny. So every time you play the game, it may be different amounts. So then you exit the cab and voila, you have teleported. Another thing that you're going to be doing in the game, which is pretty cool, is gambling. So here we go into a casino. And you have two options. You could either play blackjack or the slots. So let's head to the blackjack table first. And voila! It's actually a real blackjack game. So you use the function keys in order to control the game. You can increase your bet. You can say hit me, or you can say okay, let's take this hand. If you type help, it'll actually present you with the rules of the game, plus the controls. So here we have a game inside a game. I always love that, especially with a retro game. That's pretty sweet. Now you can't change your bet if the hand has already been dealt. Cute little animation of the various cards. And it seemed like a genuine blackjack game. It's nice that on the left it says what your bet is, and on the right it shows how much money you have. I thought I could be sneaky and change my bet in the middle of a hand, but no, it caught me. So once you're done, you can simply type exit and leave the table. So now we'll head over to the slot machines, which is much easier and quicker way to get money in the game because of our restore game feature. Yeah, I know it's cheating, but otherwise you'd have to restart this game many times. So once again, it shows you what you need in order to win and explains the rules. Decrease bet, increase bet, or pull the handle. So all you have to do is save the game. You keep reloading until you win. If you run out of money, you die. Game's over. Spend the rest of our life on Skid Row eating discarded fast food. The maximum you can bet is $20, and the maximum you can win is $250. Ah yes, they're using a single byte to represent the money. There's also some really cool portrait close-ups in the game. This is, of course, what every kid and teenager wanted to play the game for. This was before the internet, remember? Here's Fawn. Their facial expression can change too based on what you say or what actions you perform. It is pretty funny, but there's the same alley everywhere you go. If you go toward the edge of certain screens they don't want you to go to, this guy comes out with a club. It's always the same guy, always the same alley. There's also a comedy room that's completely vacant, and you'll be able to tell why in just a minute here. Yeah, remember when I mentioned some of the jokes are very lame? I think Al saved his most lame jokes for this. Whoops, sat on a comic's whoopee cushion. I'm just picturing Rodney Dangerfield up there right now. I take that back. Rodney Dangerfield's much, much better. But wait, Leisure Suit Larry isn't done. You also get to see some lame product names in a grocery store. Oh, look, there's a cute little doggy. Wandering around. Oh, here it is again. Uh-oh. He uses your leg as a fire hydrant. Yeah, that's the perfect context of Leisure Suit Larry. And of course, no Leisure Suit Larry would be complete without having a phone sex hotline. So we dial it and answer a bunch of questions. And of course, it's gearing you toward a sexual answer. Here I tried to throw a little wrinkle in it and say brain. And I had just picked up a pocket knife, so I decided to use that as my answer. Oh no, the phone hung up on us. That's typical in this game. Larry always is the loser. So later on I came back to this area and the payphone started to ring on its own. So I picked it up to answer. And this was probably a couple hours later. Hello, Larry, this is Sasha. Uh-oh. This actually made me laugh out loud because it threw all the phrases I had entered back at me. Well played, Sierra, well played. Another moment that made me laugh out loud was when I was in this grocery store trying to get a condom. Sure, we got lubbers. So obviously he has a slight English issue. So once again, we answer a bunch of questions that he asks. And note the center of the screen where the shelves are. Oh, that's funny. We thought we were here alone in the store. So finally, Larry has the ability to get lucky. So we undress. Whoa. That's a little bit risque for a 1987 DOS game. Put on our condom and let's get to work, Larry. Ah, censored. Okay. So Sierra wasn't willing to get that extreme. And there's the nice touch of the hooker smoking afterwards. So throughout the story, Larry, of course, loses a lot. Here Larry's going on and on about how good this feels, and then, hey, wait a minute, Fawn, when are you going to get undressed? That also made me laugh. So Larry just happened to pull in a gold digger, and we didn't pay her for the wine, so she tied us up. And no Leisure Suit Larry would be complete without a flasher. But wait, that's not enough. There's also a dowel, a sex dowel that you have to use. Yeah, I'm not making this up. Is it normal that I can't unsee that? I did find it a little quirky that I left a girl in the nightclub, ran all the way to get a rose that she wanted, came back and gave it to her, and everything was fine. There wasn't much real time in the game. So in closing, what did I think about Leisure Suit Larry? Well, once again, Sierra has done it. It has managed to create a charming game, even though this one's quite sleazy, and really gives a feel that you are exploring this world. The game world did seem a little smaller than the other Sierra games, but the graphics were well done, and there were all the jokes, of course, lame to excellent, but even the lame jokes were par for the course. Also, the game wasn't super difficult like some of the other Sierra games. A lot of times you could observe the environment and get enough clues you needed in order to progress. I think you could probably beat this one without using a clue book. Of course, I did use clues in order to speed up the review process. But all the scavenger hunting is fun. The cute little graphics of all the inventory items is fun. A lot of little details to make it feel like you're really there. I mean, shoot, you can even go disco dancing. Larry cutting a rug. It's fun, the characters you meet. Stumbling drunks. There's even cute little details like this Jugs magazine with a tiny little picture at the bottom there. The portraits are awesome. The rejection that Larry constantly gets is pretty funny. So overall, the sleaze and filth and comedy in the game are very entertaining. So now I'm going to show you the end of the game. So if you don't want to have that spoiled, please stop watching now. I hope you enjoyed this review of Leisure Suit Larry, and I'll see you next time.